Hello everybody and welcome to one more video on big units, and this time it's something that I've been working on for the last few months already. That's why I haven't been showing you anything lately, because I've been around a very old project of mine, something that I wanted to do probably since childhood, which was the Battle of Little Bighorn. I've been reading about it and making at the same time the models and some particular terrain in order to be able to depict this very famous battle more or less correctly. It's a very interesting period of history. Terrible at the same time, of course, because we're talking about the end of a culture, which was the Indians Plains culture, of course. A tragedy that happened in the United States. And this is a very famous battle because, first of all, it's very famous because I think someone that who might have been a presidential candidate for the United States, which was this guy here, George Armstrong Custer, dies in the battle. He was a hero of the American Civil War. He was at many battles, Gettysburg. He was even at the surrender of the Confederates at Appomattox. So he was someone relevant in the history of the United States on those days, on the 60s and 70s of the 19th century, and he died here ahead of his 7th Cavalry. Second thing that makes this thing very famous is Hollywood, of course, because it became part of the mythology of the United States, and so this battle was also celebrated several times. Of course, many times at the beginning with the Indians being the bad guys as usual in the 30s and the 40s of the filmography of Hollywood. Of course, recently that image changed. Of course, the Indians were the good guys in this situation. Of course, Americans were after the gold that existed in the Black Mountains. I mean, breaking treaty after treaty, and of course, and obviously making this Indian culture to meet its end at the famous Washita massacre a few years later than this battle. I mean, and of course, the third important issue about this battle is itself the end of the Indian culture. Indians were a few millions on the plains, at least when the Iberians arrived. I say Iberians because I mean I like to remember everybody that probably the Portuguese met Brazil much before before the beginning of the 16th century. So I like to speak Iberians, not to give too many points to the Spanish, which are, of course, nowadays our friends. Well, it doesn't matter. So another very interesting characteristic about this battle is in fact, it is a very extremely small compared to the battles that occurred in the American Civil War. This is, I mean, a little bit more than a skirmish battle, because on one side you have the 7th Cavalry with around 600 men. One of the companies is not here, is guarding the packs, and on the other side you have maybe 1,800, close to 2,000 Indian warriors. Because in fact, what tells us this is that there were around 1,000 lodges, 1,000 teepees on this camp, and so multiplying each teepee by 1.5, 1.8, maximum 2 adult or even teenager warriors, you have around 2,000 warriors. So there is an advantage of the Indians 3-1, and the Americans are on the attack force. Worse than that, Custer divides the attack force into 3 parts. And maybe worse than all of this, he doesn't know exactly what he's facing, because no one really had, on the American side, no one really had the notion of how many Indians withdraw from their reserves and went to this Montana part, to the banks of the Little Bighorn. So it is a battle that goes very, very badly for the Americans. Well, a little bit on the way this thing is portrayed. What I try to show here is the several moments of the battle. The battle occurs in the 25th and the 26th of June 1876. it's a little bit, it's a kind of a messy battle because still nowadays we don't know exactly where Custer was in certain parts of at least of the first day. He dies in the afternoon of the first day of battle, um, and there are other things that still is surrounded by mystery. Um, so let's start to see the first events. So there is look, there is one force here of Americans. There is another force here of Americans and another one here. So there are 5 companies over there. There are 3 over there and 3 here. Here, this part of the battle, part of the plan of Custer is to have this force of 3 companies going from the south of the Indian camp and surround them somehow, while the 5 companies of Custer would attack from the north, what he was thinking was the north. On the other hand, Benteen was in a more supportive role. The problem is that Custer, when he comes, it is the first moment of the battle together with the charge of Reno here. When Custer comes from the banks from the eastern banks of the Little Bighorn, which are in fact higher position. When he comes down into the camp, he's trying to renew a little bit what he did before against several Indian tribes, which was to kill the ones who resisted, of course, and trying to capture as many kids and women as possible. Which would force the Indian warriors to surrender. So he goes into the northern part of the camp, but as you can see, the northern part is not here. In fact, it is here, because as you can see, the camp was much bigger than he was thinking. While making this charge here, he meets resistance. Too strong resistance. Then when he comes to the more or less to the end of the slope, he sees that the camp is much bigger, so that he's going probably obviously to be surrounded. So he battles a little bit here, but he goes uphill, and he will end up, after many episodes of that, I don't really have time or even space to tell you, you will end up at Last Stand Hill, famous Custer Hill, which in fact is not very far from another one where another company is, which is Calhoun Hill, which is, I represented both of them, very close. You can see here again Custer, for instance. Here I placed the famous gray company, the E company, with gray horses. It tries also to catch the civilian Indians, if I can call it. So it goes back and forth, splitting each time that he makes it, splitting his force. But even so, trying to come straight to his plan, which was to capture the civilians and then to force the Indians to surrender. Somewhere here, there is of course the Squaw Creek, which is the place where plenty of women and children would be trying to hide here. Now let's go a little bit to Benteen. Benteen somehow opens the battle. He approaches the camp, and still not know Benteen is here. Benteen. Sorry, pay no attention. Reno is here, and as soon as he sees plenty of Indians in front of him, he's somehow panicked. Which is in fact, panic is the word that will go along with him for the 2 days of the battle, and he orders the soldiers to dismount, then to withdraw to another very famous part of the battlefield, which is the timber fight. So they dismount here. They face Indians. Then they withdraw. Many of them already on foot, because the Indians would shoot the horse holders, because they knew that a trooper without his horse not only would lose his ability to move, but also would lose his ammunition. So plenty of horse holders are killed here, and which forced Reno to flee across across Little Bighorn, across the river, into Bentin's position. When the battle is unfolding, you can see here, for instance, at Weir Point, Captain Weir still being able to see a lot of smoke here and dust in the air from the battle, which might have been Custer's last stand, or eventually Calhoun, or eventually even Nia and Cartwright escape, I think, because there are, then the battle becomes a little bit confusing. I mean, you see here the Indians, the Indian group led by Crazy Horse, coming up to meet Custer. You see here Rain in the Face here already approaching, and you see here Gal, another Indian commander, already at its position, charging against the Americans. The Indians were using the same tactics that they would use to hunt the bison. Now they're hunting the Americans, of course, and they would be extremely clever. They would try to suffer as least possible casualties. They would try, for instance, to place the bushes and other parts of vegetation into fire, in order to make the horses of the Americans to panic and to flee from the hands of the horse holders with the ammunition, as I told you before. They would also take advantage of the terrain, and in order to hide and to get as close as possible to the Americans. And this, of course, will end with the killing of most of the men of these 5 companies. Their perimeter will be shrunk, and almost to a man they will all be killed. They even they even shot their horses in order to make some kind of hasty breastworks, but to no avail. So let's move to this part here of the battle. So on the second day, after a night spent without sleeping, because being constantly surrounded by the Indians, Bentin manages to control his part of the battlefield extremely well. Reno is in tatters, so Bentin is here, as you can see, and he even managed to order some counterattacks. He pushes the Indians away, so more or less half of the regiment survives. And frankly, due to this guy is a very, very complex figure, because he should have come to the rescue of Custer, because he received papers from messengers asking him to do that. But at the same time, he says, at least when he was in trial, you said that no, I had no chance of doing that, so I decided to wait for the packs and not come to Custer's aid. In fact, he saved half of the regiment by doing so. Packs are here arriving. I still don't have the 13th company, and in fact, the Indians are too little here. What you also see here is a little bit too much on the American side, because I have both the dismounted and the mounted men, which means that there should be whether mounted or dismounted figures. But I place them all because I had plenty of work making all this, so I really want to show them off, of course. Okay. So this is the part of the battle, with a little bit of history and a little bit of the tactics used during this battle. This battle, of course, will be a tragedy remembered in the United States up to this day. This is a battle that is, together with both big things that happened in American history in terms of battlefields, Gettysburg, Brandywine, whatever. It's still studied up to the millimeter. It's a young country, so they treasure every button, every small piece of uniform that they can find on that battlefield. There was also a fire recently in that area, which also unveiled a lot of the secrets of the battle. Indians were armed with Martini Henry rifles, which were faster than the Springfield carbines that Americans were using, even if the carbine was, of course, reaching much further in the distance than the Martini Henry. The fact is that in a close battle, the Indians had a certain advantage because of their limited firepower, but even so, quicker firepower. Now let's see the model. So first of all, in terms of models, you have some purposely built terrain. For instance, the river was made particularly for this action. It is a piece of, there are pieces of MDF, which you can see here, and then painted under with several layers of acrylics. Also, the banks being made of sand, cat litter, and glue also helps to the shape to not to bend. Understand? And the river itself, which should in fact be brown, it's green. Because I had in fact more green than brown, so I was trying to use some pots of green that I was not knowing what to do with them, so I found a usage for them here. Another thing that was made was, of course, the teepees. I made 35 of them. They are made of blue board. They are not round, completely round. They became a little bit on the square side, because if they were round, they would be extremely large, and I couldn't place them in the small space that I was imagining that I would have for them. These ones are plastic, but all of these are made from MDF, from 4 centimeter thick MDF, blue board, sorry, and then they are sanded in order to become a little bit more round. Some plastics are placed on the top to simulate the poles that makes the teepees to stand. Teepees were built by women. That's why they are colorful and beautiful. Maybe. And this is the only things that I made on purpose. All hills and trees are from my reserve, from my stock of wargaming material. Now the figures. Most of the Indians, they come from 3 different groups. They come from, for instance, this guy here, shooting the arrow is a giant figure. Many are Atlantic. For you can see here, again, plenty of giant figures. This one here is Revell. Regarding the foot, the commander, of course, they are using those feathered bonnets, which are not used. But when you try to take the feathered bonnets, the head of the Indians become very ugly. So I prefer to use it. Besides, they are clearly Indians. If you see bonnets like this, they are clearly Indians. No one will say that they are Celts or Hittites or Egyptians or whatever. So it's unmistakably Indians, even if it is not accurately. Even if they are not accurately portrayed, because they would not use this headdress, which should be, of course, a temptation for a shooter to shoot at. So more cavalry of the same origins, mostly Atlantic. Foot Indians are mostly the rescaled Airfix, Revell, and Atlantic again. So these are my main sources for the Indians. I have at the moment around 250 Indians, which represents at 1:5 scale approximately 1,000 Indians. So I need more or less the double to represent properly the Indians at this battle. And of course, as I told you, the Americans are a little bit too much, because they are represented both on horse and on foot. Now the Americans. Let's see here the famous Custer. He's a Confederate general by Revell, converted with extra air, and all of them have rifles on their saddles. And this is the most probable uniform that he used. His buckskin coat was already taken out, so he's using his blue and white shirt underneath. Apparently, this is how he died. This is also his standard, his personal fanion of the regiment, made by his wife. The Americans on foot, they are rescale Airfix, American Cowboys by Revell, painted and then with everything, with most of them with new heads. You also see here some Italeri with new heads, with slouch heads. All of them have slouch heads. There's one or two that I kept the cappy, like that one over there, but I think the cappy was not very common. Most of them, as you can see, have the slouch head. Cavalry is mostly Italeri, and there are also some Revell around. Let me see if I find them. Also some Atlantic here. Several companies are Atlantic. You see here, for instance, Airfix. This is a Airfix and Atlantic again. Funny enough, the Atlantic doesn't go that bad with alongside the Italeri and the Airfix. Of course, they are slightly smaller, but I also didn't have the numbers I wanted, so I had to use them. For instance, you can see here a full, more companies of Italeri, Atlantic. They don't go that bad along each other. The horse holders should always have horses on the same color, because the one particularity of the 7th Cavalry was using the companies with different colors, different types of colors of brown, black, gray. Custer was wanting for the regiment to be seen in its different companies correctly, so horses were divided like that. The pack train, in fact, is not packs. Packs would be pulled by mules. They have extra ammunition and things like that. But this supply train is what is this? This is Emax or IMAX. I don't know how to say it properly. Repainted to look like American U.S. military stuff. So more cavalry here. You can see here, for instance, more these ones here are Revell. And if you notice, for instance, they are all same figure, but I cut the torso in half. I cut the figure by the waist, and I repositioned the figure in many of the miniatures in order for them to have more action. More Airfix over there also, Italeri. It's always the same. Italeri, Revell, Airfix, and Atlantic. These are the main contributors to this battle. So you can see here. Well, let's try to focus. You can see here. Oops. Benteen with his lovely yellow hair. Now a word for Reno, which is here, even if he didn't behave very well in the battle. You can see Reno here with his famous moustache also. I also try to make them as close as possible to the movie, to the very famous Son of the Morning Star movie, which is in fact a very nice depiction of the battle, even if probably an expert will not agree with me. Downed horses are... I opened holes on them and placed some arrows. So typically killed by Indians, so this cannot be used in American Civil War, of course. And I think everything is shown. Everything is shown, I think. And I hope you have enjoyed return of the battles of JP Wargaming. Okay, so it was a pleasure. Now let's see next. I still have plenty of things to show you. What delayed me was in fact the build-up of all these miniatures in the last few months. So in the near future, I hope to show you many more things that I have, like Gettysburg, like Ras Al Kafji in 1991, Americans and Iraqis, and plenty of other things. Let's give me some time. Also Sekigahara in Japan, things like that. So still plenty of things to show you, but give me some time, okay? Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.